Warning, this video will contain spoilers for Season 7, Episode 1, The Day Will Come When You Won't Be, so do be cautious as you go ahead and watch this video. What is going on, everyone? This is Ninja Geek here, and of course this is Season 7, the premiere episode. Let's get started right into talking about the episode. So finally we are back after 7 months of a huge cliffhanger which we left off on in last season, where who does Negan kill? And it has been the thing of the internet, if you want to call it that. Ever since then, I guarantee that this premiere episode has had the most viewers the show has ever had in its entire life cycle, because even people that were not fans of The Walking Dead or have never really heard of the show, they have heard about Negan and the whole show as a whole fact and what has happened during season, or what is going to happen now during season 7. So I guarantee loads and loads of people were watching that premiere episode last night. But anyways, the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the whole beginning scene. Of course, we already did see the preview. If you did not see it, you did see it last night, but that was a preview before the episode went live, so everyone already saw that part before it, and I knew already going into it that they weren't going to immediately show who died by Negan. Of course, we knew that it was going to be in this episode. However, I didn't think they would just come right out right within the first couple of seconds of the show going live and say, yes, this is who died, because that would just be lame and stupid. So what they did was, of course, they showed the part where we already saw in the beginning of Rick standing there, like after the aftermath of who Negan killed, and then it shows Rick, of course, being dragged into the trailer. We already know that. It's not really anything new, but then, of course, Rick and Negan drive off into an unknown area, and they go and explore. That's what Negan wants. Negan wants Rick, ultimately, to show him a sign that, a different look. He doesn't like the look that Rick is giving him, and we find that out later, but anyways, Rick's hatchet is given to Negan, and Negan wants to have Rick fetch it for him so that he can, show him that that's his hatchet now, that's his stuff. It's no longer Rick's group, it's no longer anything. Negan owns all of that. And so he throws the hatchet out into a horde of zombies where there's a bunch of fog and everything, or I should say walkers, actually. But it was all to show the amount of attention that Rick needs to show Negan in order for Negan to accept the fact that Rick is going to actually listen and believe in him instead of wanting to have revenge on him, because that's not what Negan wants at all, because now they work for him. Now, that was on the story side of things, but I want to talk more on the behind-the-scenes kind of things, if you will, for this particular part. And the best part, I think, of this whole episode is right here in the beginning when we see the faces of everyone around the group. The jump cuts were excellent because instead of, going between scenes, like, I honestly did not know how they were going to portray the death of who Negan killed. I did not know how they were going to do it, but I like the way that they did it. They brought in the aftermath first, and then they showed Rick kind of getting horrified, looking back on that moment, and we see it from a different perspective. We see it from his personal point of view, and then from different camera angles, we did see who in fact died. However, I will get into that in a second, but the jump cuts I felt were really necessary in showing Rick's emotion at that particular time, going back, reflecting on every single one he's loved and is in his group. It cuts back to that, cuts back to his personal moment where he's sitting on top of that trailer with that hatchet that he had to go fetch for Negan, and it just shows the whole emotion of what's going on. I mean, of course, there was that before he had to go get the hatchet. There was the jump cuts of everyone in his group, and then after that it actually showed what happened. So of course, let's get into that, the actual part that we've all been waiting for 7 months. And in my original prediction of what was going to happen in my last video, if you want to check that out, I didn't exactly get it 100% right, but over the course of time and with the information that we've gotten, I've kind of changed my prediction. And I'll say that my prediction was that Abraham was going to get Lucille, and then Daryl intervenes in some way, and that would cause something else to happen. But I didn't really predict anything much more than that, and that is actually what did happen. So Abraham got Lucille, Daryl intervenes, and then we see something that I never would have thought would have happened, because Negan then just proceeds to go, well, obviously he said the first one's free, he gets that, but the next one that has an outburst like that, he will shut that shit down. And that is exactly what he did. He shut that shit down and immediately stroke Glenn with Lucille, or stroke is the preferred correct word. And that was it of Glenn, and it was really unexpected. I didn't think that they would kill Glenn here, in all honesty, because that's what they did in the comics, but just because of that, I like the way that they did it here. He didn't mean to kill Glenn, because Abraham was the one picked. It's just Daryl was the one that caused Glenn to die, if you want to say that. However, he didn't necessarily cause Glenn to die. He's like the second cause of Glenn to die, because of course Negan is going to be Negan anyways. Daryl didn't mean to kill Glenn, so that just is how it is. But that was the actual part that we have been waiting for a very long time. Now, before I start talking more about the rest of the episode, I kind of want to talk about the people who died, which of course are Abraham and Glenn. This episode, major characters here. And, Glenn we've seen since season 1, but I want to talk about Abraham first, because in chronological order. So, Abraham, as we know and have known since the past couple of seasons, since, of course, he's been with us since season 4, so he, in my opinion, is a very main character, and he plays a really great role, but he has always wanted to start a family, since his family did not go so well, and we can see the progression during Season 6. I mean, Season 5, you had some sort of a progression, but definitely in Season 6, you had someone, Abraham, who wanted to start his own family, and that's why he was asking, people like Glenn, who had Maggie, how to particularly go about doing it, and he wasn't really sure, and because he didn't want to mess up like his first relationship went, and then, of course, he found Eugene, and the story progressed on. That's how he saved himself from committing suicide, but this time he doesn't want to mess up, so he really knows, like we all know, that he really wants to start a family, and he wants to have hope again, and the bond between Eugene and Abraham grows stronger after the fact that Eugene lied to him about Washington. The bond then grows stronger, and we saw that in the last episode in Season 6, but then, of course, Negan kills Abraham with Lucille, and he was the first choice to go, and I, of course, I'm not going to say that I like this particular choice, because Abraham, of course, was a great character. I mean, nobody was fit to die at all, but if it had to be somebody, Abraham went out strong, and he really fought to the most end that he could fight to. So Abraham was a really great character, and it's sad to see him go. And as we know, Glenn has been with us since Season 1, the pizza delivery guy, and he now is no longer here with us. Glenn was an amazing character who played an amazing role. He was always there for Rick. Rick was always there for him in most scenarios, but Glenn was like, if Rick was not the leader, Glenn would have been either number 2 or number 3 behind Daryl. That's how main and important Glenn was, and his loss will be sincerely missed. He wasn't as, funny or something as Abraham was when he came into the show, but of course he's been with us for a long time, and it was just kind of unexpected and shocking to see what happened in that scenario where Daryl kind of intervened, and then Glenn ended up taking it for Daryl for the actions that Daryl caused. It was really shocking, but that is it is what it is. This is The Walking Dead, and that is what you just have to expect going into it. But Glenn, you will definitely be missed. And then after we find out all about who died, they showed the same scene exactly as they showed it in the beginning, like when the aftermath of everything happening, but they showed it from different camera angles, which of course I like, because we get to see it actually happening, particularly in real time. Like the first time they showed it right at the beginning at 9 o'clock, right on the dot, they showed the beginning part of it, and it was like, you're watching, it's like, okay, this is the aftermath of what happened, but now after seeing what actually happened and then watching the aftermath from a different camera angle, it gives you a really different feel, which I actually, different camera angles, I should say, because they have different shots. They didn't just have one camera just sitting there, of course, and that is it just makes the whole experience more immersive. So then getting back to Rick and him trying to get the hatchet back into the trailer for Negan, they start showing something that was really weird, and I don't know if my best guess is they were trying to foreshadow something, which was either a best guess or that the fact that Rick was hallucinating or anything else could have happened here. But then they started showing intervals between Rick trying to fight off the Walker herd and trying to get back into the trailer. They showed intervals of everyone just getting smacked by Lucille and dying, like literally every single person. And at that point, I was really confused because, of course, that we all knew at that point. It wasn't like, oh wow, did Negan kill everyone? There was not that thought, because obviously he did not, because then there wouldn't be a show, there wouldn't be main cast members. So I think it was a foreshadowing event as to what happens later, where, of course, I'll get into it more in a second, but where Rick has to chop off Carl's arm or everyone else dies. And I think that was a little foreshadowing event, which I really like how they put that in there. It was really confusing, but of course, it was something that really, I think, made the episode. And like I keep saying, the jump cuts definitely make this episode stand out for being it was an amazing all the way through episode. It wasn't per se like the season 5 premiere where there was action around every single corner. It wasn't all action all the time. It was more suspense, and I really enjoyed that, and every part of it was watchable indeed. It just goes to show that you don't need action all the time where everyone has guns and are shooting walkers all the time and huge explosions to make an episode great. And I just love that about this show and TV shows in general. Now, we all know that Rick's hand gets cut off in the comics much earlier on than it does in the show, but this was a great suspense moment. They previously said, meaning the producers and the developers of the actual show previously said that they were not going to cut off Rick's hand because, of course, as we all know, when Herschel got his leg cut off, it was very difficult, except it's easier to film from the waist up to do different shots rather than, having a hand that you have to not have on them. It's easier, it's obviously easy in a comic book, but when you're talking about actual, like a TV show like they're filming, it would be pretty impossible. So I would have gone ahead and just already said that they wouldn't have cut off Rick's hand, but I like the fact that they gave the suspense that they might have, because anything could have happened, literally, and it could have even happened that Negan ended up cutting off Rick's hand, but obviously, like I said, I knew that it probably wasn't going to happen, but it was just like a little event where when Negan and obviously Rick comes back into the trailer, and Negan takes the hatchet back from Rick, and then it just pans up on Rick's hands, just his bloody hands just sitting there, as if hinting towards that Negan was going to do that. Of course, that did not happen, but it could be that also, just thinking about it now, could have been a foreshadowing event to what happens later on, which, like I previously said, that Rick had to almost chop off Carl's arm, and that was probably another foreshadowing event as to what was going to happen in a little bit into the episode further, but it was also a suspense moment, like what's going to happen now. Obviously, they showed this specific shot for a reason, the panning up on the hands, and it obviously didn't happen, but I really like the suspense there, and they didn't just, just show Rick's face and Negan and just have it like it was. They actually put some thought into dragging specific comic book elements into the show, which I really did enjoy. So right now, of course, after everything has happened within up to this point, from the season 6 finale into the season 7 premiere, everything up until this point, Rick is obviously traumatized by Negan, and of course he really wants to take revenge. I mean, why would you not want to take revenge on somebody that just killed 2 of your pretty much main characters that we all know and love, but 2 of your main guys he just killed, and of course Rick would want to attack in some form, but Negan obviously is not going to allow that. So Negan wants to make sure Rick, as the leader, not just people in his group, because of course people in his group, like anyone in his group you could pick out, would understand the fact that they would have to listen to Negan, but Rick is a strong character and within the show, and so he's just not going to listen to Negan, look up to him, and just follow everything that he says. So Negan really wants to teach Rick to respect him and to understand what he means by everything is his stuff, because that is the way of life moving forward for them. And so there needs to be a specific way that Negan needs to show Rick. And of course, the first way, when we saw Rick Negan throw the hatchet outside so Rick can go get it with all the walkers out there, it didn't give Rick the look that Negan wanted. So then he comes back to camp where everyone is sitting around there, and he almost makes Rick chop off Carl's arm. And he almost does it, and that gets Rick to make a look that Negan actually likes. This is probably the most traumatized Rick has ever been at this particular moment. Of course, when Abraham and Glenn died, he was just out of it, but the fact that he was being told to cut off his own son's arm for no reason, like when Rick did it before to Herschel back in season 3, it was to save his life, but this is no absolute reason to cut off his own son's arm, and that really gets Rick to pay attention and listen to Negan and make him understand how powerful Negan is. So as Negan and the Saviors leave, of course, we see the group trying to recover. Maggie just can't even believe what's going on. She really wants revenge, of course, but Rick, obviously, at this point, he knows that he cannot fight Negan. Like, they work for Negan now, and that's the way of life moving forward. He has an entire army. So, of course, when Negan's not there, Rick is going to act like normal Rick and try and control his group, but he really at this point has lost all control, and you could really see that he lost all control in the final shot of this episode when he's driving in the trailer, when he gets into the trailer and is driving back to Alexandria, I'm assuming, because, he needs to get back to his people, and as he gets in and sits in the driver's seat and starts driving, you can really see the confusion, the frustration, the angerness in his eyes and his face, and it's a close-up Dutch angle, which if you don't know what a Dutch angle is, it's a tilted angle, so it's not like a straight-on angle. You could really tell within that shot that there's a lot of confusion going on in his mind, not really a face of revenge, if you will. It's not like he's seeking revenge now. It's more of a face of that it's like more of a face of I don't know. It's like, well, now it's just a nothing face and just confusion. And that is exactly what it showed in the Dutch angle, especially because it was so close up to his face, and I really like how they ended off this episode showing that. But next episode, we actually got a preview what was going to happen, and we're going to learn more about Morgan and Carol, because of course they don't even know what happened to Rick and his group with the encounter with the Saviors and Negan. They have no clue with that at all. And Morgan and Carol ended up finding a community known as the Kingdom, and we get to find more about that in the coming, I think, next episode, but of course more throughout Season 7. So that is pretty much my review. Again, I really liked the jump cuts and the end final shot that this episode has. Those were the standout moments of the show, but you can let me know your thoughts all down below as to what you think about this episode. I'll see you next week with another review, and also, by the way, if you did not notice, I do have a new intro I created for this series, so hope you did enjoy that new intro, and I will see you on the next one. This is Ninja Geek. I'm out, and peace.